everyone. Happy holidays. Happy holidays, everybody. And thank you so much for joining us here at our holiday program tonight. I know that it has been 3 years in a row we have done the Nutcracker, so I promise you tonight there will be no Nutcracker. Yes? Some people are very excited, as you can tell. So we have a fabulous holiday presentation for you tonight. I'm very excited. Have some fabulous music. As you can see right away by the stage itself, our orchestra is growing quite tremendously. We have 90 members on the stage that you see tonight. Yes, I agree. Very, very pleased to have such a wonderful orchestra. It has gotten so big that our fire code now not allows us to have the choir with us. So it's quite a good and bad problem to have at the same time. Are you guys ready to sing? Yeah. Yes? Excellent. Not yet. Hold that thought. We will be singing tonight, I promise you, but it'll be mainly in the second half. We've got quite a classical program for the first half, and the second half is going to be a lot of fun. This is where we get our chance to sing. I hope you brought your singing voices. We're going to sing the Hallelujah Chorus, and we have a wonderful sing-along that we're going to be having. Our first piece on the program tonight, the Night Before Christmas, a poem that really kind of cauterized, standardized, I should say, the idea and the image of Santa Claus, a lot of the mythology that we have at the holidays. The holidays are always a fabulous time, and one of the things I love so much about the holidays is the fact that we bring back a lot of old traditions. As you can imagine, I majored in a 17th century instrument myself. My students laugh at me with my inadequacy with technology, as my little nephew teaches me how to, do my Instagram account and all kinds of different things. It's a wonderful place to be living in an older tradition. We get to pull a lot of the traditions back from way back when. And one of the great traditions that we have is the idea of telling a story. The mythology that comes with all holidays, with all faiths and all beliefs, from the Hindus to Judaism, to Christianity, to you name it, even Festivus for the rest of us, right? As they say from Seinfeld. We all have our holiday traditions and our holiday stories. And I'd like to start off our concert tonight with a little story for you to get you in the mood and hopefully set a little Christmas spirit. Holidays are always a family affair, and we're very lucky to have 3 generations in the orchestra of the Johnson-Strout family. Mom on the principal cello, daughter on viola, grandpa on first trombone, and we're going to ask Dad to come out. Dad, will you join us? And here he is. Ian Stroud, joining us for the dramatic reading of Christmas, the Night Before Christmas. I remember the first time I took over carving the turkey at Thanksgiving. I swear I never sweated so hard in my life. Oh my goodness. So Dad's going to take over, and we are going to give you a little story to start off the evening.
'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled down for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutter, and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a luster of midday to the objects below. When what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 9 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be Saint Nick. More rapid than eagles, his coursers they flew, and he whistled and shouted, and he called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen. Easy there, Comet. Rudolph, when you're quite ready. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash away, dash away, dash away all. The coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys and St. Nicholas too. And then, in a twinkling, I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur, from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had slung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of his pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke, it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all his stockings, then turned with a jerk. And laying a finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod up the chimney, he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team he drove out of sight, Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
Well done, Dad. Well done. So, we're going to change things up a bit. Now that, are you guys feeling the Christmas spirit a little bit? Yes? All right. Now, we're going to change things up a little bit. As I was saying about the old, Christmas is a holiday that we often tend to think of in our modern context with the concept of Santa and all of the different things. In the different areas and the different periods of time that Christmas existed and still exists today, we have many different traditions and different things. I always found it interesting to see the different traditions, especially the older traditions. We have a wonderful little piece for you from the late 1600s called Concerto Grosso, to be played on the night of Christmas by a man by the name of Arcangelo Corelli. Corelli was a very famous Italian violinist. He was the first violinist to standardize bowing, to make sure that all the bowing is going in the same direction. He was the first real violin virtuoso to create a blueprint for guys that would come later, like Antonio Vivaldi in his Four Seasons, and some of the fabulous Locatelli and Veracini, and later on with the great violinists of the time. He was really the first to lay the foundation, the groundwork, and he writes this beautiful little Christmas tune, this Concerto Grosso, for 3 soloists. We have 2 violin soloists and a cello soloist, along with a very fascinating instrument, thanks to our bass trombonist, Mike Pierce. Thank you, Mike, who's lending us his beautiful harpsichord. This is a traditional instrument that existed before the modern piano. And you get to hear, it's actually the difference between a piano and a harpsichord is a piano has a hammer that strikes the string. The harpsichord actually has a little plectrum. It was originally made out of quills from a porcupine that pluck the string as it goes by. Instead of hearing a hammered sound, you hear something that sounds like this. Now, this is what existed before the modern piano. The modern piano kind of comes in around 1830, 1840. Earlier versions of it existed around the end of Mozart and Beethoven's life. But really, the modern piano as we know it didn't come along until the 1800s. So everything musically would have heard this sound of the harpsichord. Shall we tune? And the traditional Baroque sound actually, believe it or not, had the A that the strings tuned to a little bit lower. Please go ahead and tune, don't mind me jabbering. So you're actually hearing them retuned to a little bit lower tone than originally would have been. This is the tradition. You're going to hear a semi-period performance of what this would have sounded like closer to the 1600s. Now, in Italy, we have a lot of different traditions. For those of you who are joining us here in the United States early, my family, believe it or not, I'm second generation American on my mother's side and first generation on my father's side. And on my mother's side, we come from Italy, from Sicily and from Naples. And our Christmas tradition that we say is Buon Natale. There is no Santa Claus. There's baby Jesus who comes and leaves presents for you in the morning, at Christmas. I was very confused with who this fat guy in the red suit was as a child. Where's baby Jesus? He's the one that brings you all the gifts, So again, it took me a little while to acclimate to that. But again, you're going to hear a little bit of an Italian tradition from the 1600s. This is a beautiful little piece to be played on Christmas Eve. I think you're really going to love it. Isn't that beautiful music? Absolutely. Fabulous. So again, we're going to jump in our time machine and jump forward a few hundred years while the orchestra tunes again. So, I'd like to talk a little bit about the next portion of our program. Did you hear something? Anyway, so as I was saying, we're going to talk about this next portion of... I could have sworn I heard the Sugar Plum Fairy, but anyway. So as I was saying, this next portion of the story, we have this little thing. Excuse me for a second. I guess we're doing some nutcracking. I promise that is the last nutcracker we're going to hear tonight, right? So anyway, as I was saying, about those stories, right? The holidays are always exciting, wonderful. We have joyous and beautiful memories, but the reality of the holidays is always chaotic, crazy. There's always a gremlin in the machine, right? It never fails. Every holiday I've ever had, there's always been something exciting, strange, weird. I have a fabulous little story that I'd like to bring to you from the 1800s, one of the earliest of these Clark W. Griswold and the Christmas Vacation stories, written by a man by the name of Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov. This is a fabulous little opera that I stumbled upon a couple years earlier called Christmas Eve. Now, in the great operatic tradition, as we talked about last concert, right, we have a number of characters. This takes place in a little town in northern Russia. And this little town, of course, is the typical little town. It's Christmas Eve. The mayor is having a Christmas party, right? It's a beautiful night. The stars are shining. The moon is bright on the snow. It's a gorgeous night. Everything couldn't be more perfect. People were getting ready for the party at the mayor's house. Everything was going to be fabulous, wonderful, right? Typical start to a Christmas story. And then everything isn't exactly all right. There's one guy in the opera that's really bummed, and that is the devil. Yes, the devil is in this opera. I don't know where that came from, but the devil is bummed out. It's Christmas Eve. He's going to lose his powers. Christmas morning. So he's trying to figure out with the local witch, who happens to be the blacksmith's mother, how he can wreak havoc on Christmas Eve, the night before he loses all of his superpowers. So what does he do? He and the witch get together and conjure up a terrible snowstorm, a blizzard that blows, and everybody gets lost in the storm trying to get to the mayor's house. One by one, somehow, they find their way to the witch's house, which seems to be the only light on somehow. And it's really kind of a funny situation. The first, there's a knock at the door. The witch opens the door, and it's, of course, the mayor looking around. Where is everybody? I thought everybody was coming to my house for a party. She says, well, why don't you come on in? It's cold outside. He says, okay. Can I have a glass of vodka? Absolutely. They have a glass of vodka, and they dance a little bit, and then there's a knock on the door. Mayor says, oh my God, I can't be found here. Hide me, quick. So the witch throws him a sack of coal. He jumps into the sack of coal and lays down like a sack of coal on the fireplace, right? And in walks the preacher, right? The preacher says, oh, what are you doing here all by yourself on such a beautiful Christmas Eve? I was going to go to the mayor's house, but since you're here, why don't I hang out and have a drink? And he has a glass of vodka, and they dance a little bit, and all of a sudden, guess what? There's a knock at the door, right? And he says, oh my God, I can't be caught here, hide me, So she throws him a sack of coal, and he lays down on the mantle. In walks the Cossack, this kind of rough and rugged hunter type character, and says, I was going to go to the mayor's house, but your house is much closer, so why don't we have a drink and dance a little bit? And the party goes on, and all of a sudden, guess what? Yes, there's a knock at the door. The devil shows up. The Cossack says, oh my God, he's already after me. I better hide. Jumps into a sack of coal and sits by the fireplace. The devil walks in, says, oh, I notice you're alone. Why don't we hang out and have a drink? The snowstorm's working perfectly. They have a drink and they dance a little bit. And of course, there's a knock on the door. And the blacksmith, our main character, walks in sad and sullen, talking to his mom about how he is in love with the mayor's daughter, but she would never, ever love him. He had talked to her earlier in the day and said, I love you, I want to be with you. Will you spend time with me on Christmas Eve? And she says, oh no, why would I spend time with a lowly blacksmith, There's no way I would ever marry you, so what's the point? She's very kind of haughty, And he says, well, is there any way I can win your affection? She says, yes, there's one way. By bringing me back the slippers of the Tsarina, Tsar Catherine the Great and her famous ruby slippers. And of course he goes off into the night depressed, no way and hope of finding these slippers. So he shows up at his mom's, he says, all right, I'll take the coal back to my blacksmith shop, and picks up these bags of coal with all these people in it and says, my God, this is a lot of coal. Drags them off into the night, right? As he arrives at his blacksmith shop, the devil jumps out of a bag and starts to scurry away. The blacksmith, being fast and smart, jumps on top of him and wrestles him to the ground. This is what you're going to hear in this first part of the opera. See if you can pick out the sound of the twinkling of the moon and the stars, the wrestling of the devil and our main character, the blacksmith, and the sound of the devil trying to take flight and get away. See if you can listen to that. In the next part of our story, the main character, our blacksmith, wrestles the devil to the ground. He sees an opportunity. He says, you're going to do my bidding for the rest of the night. He says, I want you to fly me to St. Petersburg and land me in the castle of the Tsarina. And the devil says, no way am I going to fly you. And he says, I have you by the throat. There's nothing you can do. And the devil finally agrees after a scuffle and says, all right. And off they go. They whisk away and fly to St. Petersburg. You're going to hear the actual flight of the devil with the blacksmith on his back in the strings, this yum takaram 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 takaram, as they fly through the air, all the while heading into the Tsar's palace. They land, and of course there's a brilliant festivity. It's Christmas Eve, right? A huge party. Catherine the Great is hosting. Everybody is there and dancing. They had a tradition of granting wishes to all the kind of people that would come to the palace. Everybody was there. It was a huge party. And they start off with a brilliant festival and end with a grand polonaise, a beautiful kind of stately dance that everyone, old and young, danced together. This was kind of the time where everybody danced. You'll hear this big, brilliant, beautiful polonaise. As the polonaise ends, the blacksmith bows down and comes forward and asks the Tsarina if she might possibly grant him a pair of the ruby slippers to give to his beloved so he can get married. The Tsarina, of course, being the wonderful and gentle, malevolent ruler that she was, summons one of her servants and brings out a pair of ruby slippers. The blacksmith is so ecstatic, he jumps back on the devil's back and off he goes on his way to the back to the village. Let's see if you can hear a little bit of these things. See if you can catch the festival, the flight of the devil, and our blacksmith, and of course that brilliant dance, the polonaise. Isn't that fabulous? Brilliant festival, right? Did you hear it? Awesome. Now, you want to know how the story ends? Yes. So, our blacksmith is flying back from St. Petersburg. Oksana, the mayor's daughter, is being told by various village women, the gossips around, that they've seen him dead, that he has died, he's passed away, he's disappeared, he's gone. You know, and Oksana starts to feel sadness and loneliness, realizes, my God, maybe I do love the blacksmith after all. God, I wish he was still here. You hear this very sad music, and then immediately cut to the flight of the devil and our blacksmith. On his way in, he comes flying in just at the twinkling of dawn, comes sliding into a stop right in the middle of the village, jumps off the devil's back, and presents Oksana with the ruby slippers. She, having already fallen in love with him, wraps her arms around him, says, I love you, let's get married, just as the tolling of the bells for Christmas morning and the sunrise comes up. You'll hear the chime of the church bells on their wedding day, Christmas Day, as the story has a happy ending. One of the very few operas that does, right? So please enjoy. After this, we're going to take a short intermission, then we're going to come back and we're going to give you a chance to sing it. So enjoy the last little bit of this Christmas Eve by Rimsky-Korsakov.